2023. Matt, you had an announcement?
So for the commission, I received notice today from downstairs. The commission meetings had to be relocated for the July 13th and August 10th meeting to the fourth floor conference room.
Okay.
So for the next two meetings, we'll be upstairs in the conference room.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Announcements and public comment. That was it for public comments? Any announcements?
no announcements at this time.
All right. Minutes from 5/11/2023. Do you have a copy of those to send around?
No, I don't have, they may be in front of you.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 11th, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 11th, 2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye.
Look at you go. I'm gonna have to get to my email to download Mr. Anderson's email. So everybody close your eyes, I'm entering my password. I'm just kidding. Can't see it.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank you.
Our first item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability for April Mills, project address 376 Beachview Drive.
Also, Mr. Chairman, on the agenda for 376 Beachview Drive, we also have a certificate of compliance for work previously done on Beachview.
Okay.
So Ms. Mills would like the certificate here. I do have it to sign, if you guys want to vote on that as well, when you vote her action.
Okay. So this is a new item, so do we have a reading?
Yep. Just give me one sec here.
The proposed work includes removal and replacement of front stairs that are in disrepair. Pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Winchendon Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Winchendon Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 8, 2023, at 6:05 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Amanda Mills for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 376 Beachview Drive, Assessors Map M15, Parcel 18. The proposed work includes removal and replacement of front stairs that are in disrepair. The hearing will be held second floor auditorium at Town Hall, 109 Front Street, Winchendon, Mass. 01475. Alternative translation and accommodation for disabled persons is available by advance request. Is April Mills here? Could you please step forward?
It's actually Amanda. Yeah. April Mills was the former owner. I actually changed it on our agenda, but it was Amanda. And it's been posted in the newspaper as Amanda as well.
Okay,
It's
this
just when
still
you look at
says
the
April.
agenda, she wrote April.
Okay.
Do you need me to write my name and my address and my email?
Could you
here?
please sign in and state your name into the microphone?
Amanda Mills.
Matt, could you start us off on this one?
This is a simple RDA. This one wasn't for the beach stand, right? This one was
No.
for the replacement.
The beach stand was the previous work last year that we're certifying that I completed. Our front stairs are the main entry to our house, have slowly been rotting away since we bought the house. Now it's to the point where we try to repair them with screws or shoving bricks under to support them, and they're just totally letting go. Over the winter, we, as homeowners, have both fallen down them a few times, and the delivery people have stopped coming to deliver packages to the door. Now they leave them in the driveway. So we have to repair them in a way that is safe. So my address and email.
Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to get these for that hearing downloaded. I guess I'll just hold off on that one.
How close is this to wetlands or sensitive areas? Must be in front of us because it must be in a setback.
Right, actually, this was the stairs were 60 feet from the edge of water.
Okay.
And Ms. Mills was actually issued an emergency certification because there was a trip hazard. And somebody actually, elderly, did, was your mother-in-law, was it?
Yeah, my grandmother.
Or your grandmother, I'm sorry, she tripped and fell. So we issued her an emergency permit. The RDA that she's filing here is for retroactive purposes to fulfill the conditions on the emergency permit. Everything was replaced with new materials in kind, nothing was expanded, nothing was extended out.
So, are there any questions or comments from the board? Melissa?
No.
No.
Randall?
Oh,
Glenn? Anybody from the public here for this hearing? Abutters? Okay, so we're looking for a negative determination with an order of conditions.
I make a motion for a negative determination with normal conditions.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Now, we also have a certificate of compliance for the same address. Would you guys mind voting to release that? And I'll process that early next week and get it out to you.
Okay.
I'll entertain that motion if anyone's willing to issue the certificate of compliance.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, Amanda, that will be, they're signing it now.
Okay.
I got to process it and send a copy to the DEP.
Okay.
That'll be Tuesday, and I will email you and let you know when it's ready. You can just come pick it up to the office at your leisure,
Great.
okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Next on the agenda, we have a request for determination of applicability for John McQuestion. Thank you. Project address 136 Second Street. This proposed work includes replacement of an existing deck with the 100-foot, within the 100-foot buffer zone.
John, are you present?
Do we have a DEP number for this, Matt?
This is an RDA.
Okay.
For some reason, it's not coming up on here. I do not know why. It's showing in the file. It's not, it's listed in the file here, but for some, the file must have gotten corrupt. So I'll pop open an aerial here.
We're gonna need the reading first, Matt.
This was actually a continuance.
Oh, it's a continue here?
This was continued. What we did was, we did a site walk. This was one of the other one we were gonna site walk after we were done the French site. Pop up the aerial. So this is the property in question. 146 is an empty lot that's subject to a notice of intent and a separate hearing that is gonna be continued, because we still don't have a DEP number. And John, based on the site walk, was going to see if he could adjust the location to account for our no-build zones. So it's, John, when you do that, you're gonna have to come up with a rendering that's gonna be acceptable to the DEP, because they're still waiting for that. Because I double-checked with the DEP's database to ask what they were waiting for. And that's what I
Pretty sure that can happen.
So as far as 136 Second goes, the proposal was for a deck coming off of the back. And myself, Commissioner Blanchard, and Commissioner Whitaker went out and did some measurements. And I don't know if you wanted to,
Yeah, it was 36 feet from the shoreline. But did you bring the literature on those posts?
I did, and I
On that.
checked with Bell Tates today, and they do have, both, there's a lighter one and there's a heavy one for.
Very interesting, you want to see this. There was no deck existing. Well, there was, but it was covered. Where he wants to put now was not a deck, within 36 feet. But this is a new post, and he said he'd already had it approved through, the building department had seen this, and it's very,
I did verify that, by the way.
it is verified, okay. This is really interesting, and it's not going to cause any issues with the wetlands. It's not invasive at all. It's actually designed for wetlands. And we discussed with him about putting conditions that he would not enclose it, neither the bottom nor the top, so that way it wouldn't really change anything to the beached area. Those just go in with pins, so there'll be no holes dug. It's just basically like setting a rock on the ground in a couple of spots.
So, Mr. Chair, as the commissioner is confirming, herself and Mr. Whitaker, as long as he did a non-intrusive, but I've seen those used. I've had other sites where I've seen other builders use them, and they work well. As long as they used that material, kept it a semi-pervious deck, and agreed not to ever cover it, which we can do a perpetual condition on that, then they would, they were willing to entertain issuing a negative with a waiver and the permanent restriction on enclosing it.
Okay.
Because essentially, you're not digging anything into the ground, you're just basically nailing something into the ground.
Right. Any questions or comments from the board? Melissa?
No.
Lionel?
No.
Clint? All set? Any comments from the public? Okay, so what we're looking for here is a negative determination with the order of conditions for standard order of conditions, silt fence, hay bales.
I'd like to make a motion, negative determination, standard order of conditions.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you.
All done?
Yeah, you're all set on that part of it. The other lot, you gotta come back, so.
Now that I've crossed the little one, I'm gonna work harder on the 146 with the DEP that has emailed me, and they're looking for a couple of more things. And I'll do that, seeing that the other one's out of the way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next hearing is a notice of intent. Applicant Tony Ruscioni, 59 Gardner Road, for the proposed work. Includes replacement of a failed well on the property within the 50-foot buffer zone.
Mr. Chairman, that's also up for continuance. We're still waiting for a DEP number on that one.
Can I get a motion to continue this to our next meeting?
Make a motion
Is our
to
next
continue.
meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Let's
Yeah.
continue.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before we go into the battery development codes, NOIs, which we do have the DEP number for,
Yep.
you have the subsequent two hearings after that, are, you can see, I highlighted, if you look at the TV screen, I adjusted the agenda here on screen and said these are to be continued. There's nobody here for 16 Second Street, and we haven't received any updated information. And Mr. McQuestion, who just left, that's the other lot he needs to work on. So seeing as we can do this flexibly, if you want to continue both of those now, and then we can move on to the last matter before us, which is these two NOIs that are here before us now.
16 Second Street is a second continuance, right?
It's like a third.
So we just need a vote to continue it. We don't need to open the hearing.
That's correct.
So I need a motion to continue 16 Second Street to our next meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Same thing with the next one.
Okay, we need a motion to continue 146 Second Street.
I'd like to make a motion to continue 146 Second Street to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, I don't know if you want to take these two in block form.
ZP Battery.
Yeah. I also took the liberty of leaving hard copy plans. You have a copy of the NOI and a hard copy plan, if you wanted to share with Lionel. And Commissioner Blanchard, I left you a copy of the plan for your use, because I figured those two gentlemen would want to share. And Glenn, there was one I had for you and Dave if he showed up to share, so if you want to open it, it's right there. I'll pop it up on the screen as well, but I just wanted to.
I just wish they could have printed it a little bigger. All right, our next hearing is for ZP Battery Devco LLC, 0 Murdoch Avenue. The proposed work includes construction of a solar energy storage system within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Now, I see two NOIs. What are the, can you please itemize what the NOIs are for?
Andrea Kendall with LEC Environmental Consultants. I'm here tonight with Chris Anderson.
Could you please approach the mic? These are recorded.
Here tonight with Chris Anderson from Hannigan Engineering and Tom Corbett, the applicant, representing what are you going by today?
ZP Battery is fine.
ZP Battery, thank you. We're here tonight for a solar energy storage system located at the northern terminus of Murdoch Avenue, known as 0 Murdoch Avenue. I'm just gonna hand out a locus that I thought would be easier to review as we go over the project, so it puts things a little bit more in perspective.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Matt, you want to start us off on this, please?
So what we have is a notice of intent for solar battery storage area and a rain garden stormwater management control. This has received a DEP number as of 1:45 a.m. So somebody was burning the midnight oil. The DEP comment was to essentially have the applicant address how the rain garden is going to meet stormwater management standards, because based on the documentation submitted, it wasn't clear to the DEP if it actually would. So if we could address that part of it with the commission to address the DEP comment, that would be great. The area does keep in with our bylaw on the red is the 100-foot buffer zone. This first blue line is your 75-foot no-build zone. So work that is proposed to take place for the battery storage is between the 75 and the 100-foot. Your stormwater management goes within 75, but you do not, your setback to wetlands under your bylaw for stormwater management structures is 0. So they're well within their rights to go where they're going under your local regulation.
Thank
So
you.
with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Anderson.
I just wanted to, if you can bring up the rendering again, just wanted to quickly go over where the wetlands are in relation to the site. It's comprised of 2 parcels, one on the east side of Murdoch and one on the left side. To the north is the Saloom Furniture Company, just for reference. And then on the far right is sort of like this a former railroad right-of-way where all
That's
the...
good.
Yeah, thank you. Where all the infrastructure has been removed, and it's a cut portion of the railway, so that's wet, and it's formed into a wetland over time. So there is a wetland within that right-of-way. And then to the southeast is a wetland that borders on an intermittent stream that flows essentially south and then west through a culvert below Murdoch Avenue, and then it discharges to the left into another larger BVW system. Overall, that system flows south towards Pearl Street. It's a wet meadow transitioning to a scrub shrub and forested wetland. There is a level, essentially fairly level upland area currently where the project is proposed. And if there are no questions about existing conditions, I'll just hand it over to Chris.
Hi, could you state your name into the mic, please?
For the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering.
Thank you.
So as Andrea and Matt had just mentioned, this is for a battery system. It comprised primarily of a series of concrete pads that support the battery unit systems, which Tom Corbett from ZPB Battery will be able to go into depth a little bit further in a moment. But the general intent of the site is to provide the battery storage sites themselves physically along the easterly side of the Murdoch Ave. The access to this area will be provided by a gravel access drive, which forms a sort of jug handle configuration to provide multiple points of access to the battery site in case of emergencies and for maintenance purposes. Each battery site will be enclosed with a security fence for security purposes. I should note that due to the unique topography of the site, we're actually sort of digging into the slope a little bit in this area. What that does is it creates a natural berm feature along the easterly side of the battery site. So as you can see on the plan before you, that wetland area to the east of the actual battery site is protected by the natural topography and our topography of the site itself. Stormwater, for purposes of stormwater, runoff will be captured by a series of deep sump catch basins, which then directs runoff to a trunk line that discharges runoff to the opposite side of Murdoch Ave to a rain garden feature. We did receive comment from DEP, relative to the garden. A few of the comments were relative to nomenclature within the construction details. Basin berms being labeled as detention as part of the detail. In reality, it's a rain garden feature. That and providing a little bit of extra documentation for the rain garden itself. But the intent of it is to provide peak rate mitigation for the runoff from the site. It detains it for a short period of time before discharging towards the south side of the site. The entire area will be loamed and seeded, and then plantings will be provided within the rain garden. Pretty much every disturbed surface on around the area will be loamed and seeded for permanent stabilization, with the noted exception of the fenced-in areas, which will need to be a crushed stone base. As part of the overall development, all the work is being performed within the 75 to 100-foot buffer zone. We're not encroaching into the 50-foot buffer for this project, so we're respecting the limits of the bylaw relative to that aspect of the project. I'll pass it off to Tom, and he can give you a little bit more background on what the intent of the use is.
Good evening, Tom Corbett, Zero Point Development, ZP Battery DevCo. So these are energy storage systems that support existing renewable energy infrastructure that is on the grid currently. So we have been a large-scale developer of solar over the years. Massachusetts has moved from small-scale solar to medium-scale solar to large-scale solar. Most recently, in 2018, we've got the SMART portfolio for solar. And with that SMART portfolio, or the SMART program through the state, that encompassed energy storage with solar fields. Now, Massachusetts is moving towards leaning away from large-scale solar and getting more into standalone energy storage for the renewable assets that we already have within the state. And that is a non-wires approach to infrastructure upgrades. So the way that the grid works now is that the solar is producing during the day, it's getting put onto the lines, it's either getting used or lost through heat. So Massachusetts put forward the Clean Peak Energy Standard. The Clean Peak Energy Standard calls for renewable energy assets to be consumed by energy storage systems, and there's certain ways that you can qualify through the program. This particular type of system qualifies by a coincident, is what they call it. So while the solar is charging during the day, we are allowed to charge the batteries while that solar is on at certain times, and it's dictated through the program as well as restrictions through National Grid as far as how we can operate. There's a schedule associated with the projects, each individually.
Speak up a little bit louder, please.
Sure, yeah, sorry. So these systems store the energy that's being produced during the day and discharge that back into the grid at night. So while people are out at work and the solar is producing and we're using minimal electricity on the grid, these systems are charging and storing that renewable energy that's existing within the grid now, discharging it later at night, we'll say 4 to 9 p.m. while people are home doing laundry, ACs, heat, anything like that. So project specific, we've got on each one in the fenced in, as Chris mentioned, each site is fenced in. There'll be security Knox boxes for the fire department as well. The bigger boxes that you see here on the plan, those are concrete pads with the energy storage containers stored on them. These containers go back to back. Each container is 30 feet long, roughly 6 feet wide, 8 feet high. In front of those containers there are the interconnection equipment, similar to what you would see on a solar field. So we've got an inverter, transformer, a neutral ground, and as well as a meter and recloser to connect and equalize the voltage to get onto the grid. Be glad to answer any questions beyond that.
No, thank you. That was very thorough, and I appreciate it. One thing I'll ask the board to remember is we have to remember public benefit, and that seems like it is a public benefit instead of wasting the solar. So are there any questions or comments from the board?
How many houses will this light up?
How many houses? So a megawatt, I've got a cheat sheet here from the planning board. Where are we?
Speaking of which, and excuse me for the interruption on your answer, just for the commission's edification, the planning board's continued this matter pending our outcome, so they're waiting to see what we do.
Waiting our decision?
Yep. Stormwater has been reviewed by the third-party reviewer the town uses Time Warner.
What was the result of that?
As far as I know, they gave it their blessing.
We're still going through that review, so the peer review tie-in bond, they're party with the planning board, brought up similar concerns that the DEP brought up, so we're working through those comments to address their concerns.
Good. Okay.
Are there any
Stand
abutters?
corrected.
Are there any abutters here that would like to speak on this matter?
Well, I'm sorry I interrupted Commissioner LaRochelle's question. He asked him how many houses will this light up?
Yep, I don't have the number off the top of my head right now, but about a megawatt services roughly 750 houses, roughly. So we've got 5 megawatts each site here, so do the math there, and I don't know the number off the top of my head. Excuse me? Yeah, yep, so right now, Winchendon has roughly 20 megawatts, 20 to 24 megawatts worth of solar production in town. So what we do is we look to absorb that into the storage systems in order to equalize the grid, and this benefits the grid structure in a way of resiliency and building a robust infrastructure, so that we can enable more hosting capacity for more commercial applications, more residential applications without going through town and reconductoring every line throughout town.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Melissa?
Yeah, I have a few.
Go ahead.
I'm a little confused on that print and this print.
You're looking at that's 256 Murdoch, so that's the second project.
Why it's not making any sense to me?
That's why I had asked about the two NOIs. That print's on the screen right now.
Yeah, but do we have a copy of that to be able to better see layout and lines? Where is the railroad track to where you're planning on putting these?
The railroad track is directly to the east, that linear rectangular parcel that's off-site technically, yeah.
Yeah, I have this. He said
We're
this
doing
isn't.
256 right now or zero?
This is zero.
Zero.
This is zero. This is zero Murdoch.
Are those railroad tracks not slated to be bike paths soon?
That's correct.
I'm not sure about that.
There we go, okay, that's, I'm looking at the other one going, this is not what I'm looking at.
They're talking about extending.
So how many square feet of encroachment have you calculated within the setbacks? Have you done that calculation within the buffer zones?
That calculation has not been performed yet.
Okay. So if there's no questions or comments from the board, we're looking for an approval with a standard order of conditions. Probably a special order of conditions.
I make a motion for a special
So Matt,
condition.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Did somebody say something? Okay, so did you ask for public comment?
do you want to speak? Okay, come on up. Yeah, you can take that mic.
Have you
it's fine.
signed in on the sign-in sheet?
Rodney Brewer, School Street. Let me just sign in. Couple questions. You keep referring to this as solar storage, but it's not near any solar plants. How are you storing solar energy and getting it there?
I think his question is, what solar field is the power coming from to charge these batteries?
So the way that this works through the state program is that it allocates the amount that's produced from solar to be absorbed by the energy storage. National Grid further restricts us depending on load and other distributed assets on the line, have it be hydro or wind, whatever, in certain areas. So they allow us to charge while the solar is producing, and that's how these systems work, is coincident. So that's how the state program is written, which is, yes, it's not coupled with the solar system, but you're taking the energy off the line while it's getting put on the line.
Basically, there's no difference. A power line is a power line. Whether
Correct.
it gets it from solar, whether it gets it from hydro, it's just a power line.
Correct.
You can't differentiate the power sources.
Right.
So they're just basically storing energy off the grid.
All right, so calling it a solar storage is kind of a misnomer.
Not really. So the Attorney General has most recently categorized this and given this Chapter 40, Section 3 land rights provisions for solar photovoltaic as being part of the definition of that. So it is, in the state's eyes, part of a solar field and part of a solar production in an asset to enhance the grid structure for that reason.
So if I was to summarize, I'd say solar produces a certain percentage of electricity, and you're allowed to sap a certain, store a certain amount of electricity, so
Correct.
that's why it's called solar. So does that explain your question?
Kind of, it's still a misnomer.
So solar makes 15%?
I know what he's saying, so yeah, but it's really just pulling power off the grid. It has nothing to do with the solar fields in town. So my next question is why aren't these being put in the solar fields rather than tearing up new space? Put them in, you already torn up all the land for the solar fields. You got a new one going in, You've got all the infrastructure that's over on the, I guess it'd be the south side of town off of Spring Street for National Grid. Why don't they locate it in areas that are already wired, torn up, and built for accommodating electrical infrastructure?
It's a little bit more difficult than going back and revisiting a site plan that's already been maximized to the fullest extent to utilize the most amount of land for solar production. So there are certain parts of Clean Peak Energy Standard that provide for energy storage coupled with solar to qualify. So you could go back to a solar field and put energy storage on it, but the vast majority of sites are already maximized,
Yeah,
right?
To that point, usually when we authorize solar fields, they utilize every square foot of it. They put a panel every single place they can.
Okay, but if we were, as a town, gonna entertain this, why wouldn't we put a requirement on those fields to have enough solar storage in place on site?
Well, this is literally the first time this issue has come before us. I've never heard of a solar storage site, so maybe that's something we can visit going forward and put
That
those
actually,
requirements in
Mr.
place.
Chair, would seem to be more of a planning board issue.
Right.
Probably we'd be best off addressing that at the continued meeting, because I believe the planning board is reconvening on the 18th.
Yeah.
20th.
20th? All
Whatever
right,
that
so
Tuesday is.
you might want to address that with the planning board, because that would require, for what you're asking for, it would require a change in zoning and planning regulations.
Okay, that's why I asked, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, when I was here last month, I'd asked if there was going to be an environmental impact study done, looking for, or cataloging all any protected species, flora and fauna. Has that been done?
There is no rare and endangered species habitats on this property. The habitat for flora and fauna is the wetlands, and they've been protected because there is no work proposed within them.
Okay.
So those performance standards under the state and local wetland protection and environmental regulations have been met by what I see in front of me right now, minus the confirmation on the stormwater management from the town's third-party engineer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about the runoff? So, because that's going down into that stream that runs along Murdoch Ave, theoretically, correct? That's the plan, that's what it sounds like.
What's the question?
The runoff. The runoff goes into the wetlands on the, I guess it would be the west side of Murdoch Ave?
Perhaps if the proponent's engineer could answer where the stormwater is routed to. So, Mr. Anderson, if you wouldn't mind, on behalf of the commission, if you could just go into that to answer this gentleman's concern?
Correct. So stormwater, as I'm sure the commission is very much aware, takes a look at several very important aspects to the actual resource area relative to treatment, to mitigation, to erosion protection, and all that kind of stuff. So runoff from this area discharges into that large bordering vegetated wetland that I believe, per Andrea's review, discharges towards the stream near Pearl Street. As part of this project, because it is one located within the jurisdictional areas of the commission as well as the town's stormwater bylaws, we are required to meet the requirements of stormwater management to the full extent under the law. That part of that is included peak rate mitigation, so our intent is to slow down the water to be at a commensurate rate as it is now, which the system does provide. In addition to that, there's several other aspects, including recharge of groundwater. Unfortunately, this site is located within a very compact till. It's typical of this area. So groundwater recharge is provided to the maximum extent practicable. We are providing some, but it's inherently difficult to do in these sorts of soils. But we do provide compliance calculations for that as well as treatment of the stormwater itself. This project is unique in its nature because it's generating very small amount of impervious area for the amount of disturbance. For example, the only impervious surface that's actually created is the concrete pads for which these units sit on. By nature, these units don't develop the typical pollutant loads that you would see on other impervious projects such as a parking lot. So the water is significantly cleaner than you would expect from a parking lot or any other kind of land development project. But we run that through a series of deep sump catch basins, which captures a lot of the initial sediment from the overall site, and then discharges that to the rain garden feature, which then provides additional level of treatment as well. So that is the three big line items when it comes to stormwater management, but we are reviewing the standards and compliance with the system with third-party engineer through the planning board right now.
And in regards to the wetlands on that 100-foot buffer on the other side of the hill, is the water going to recharge those wetlands? Or is it all going to be directed back across and under Murdoch Ave?
So there's a natural berm through the chair that forms right around the area of the, right off the northern corner of the battery site as you see now. So it defines a pretty well-developed line, if you will, a hydraulic break between the battery storage system site itself, as well as that, I believe the abutter is referencing a small wetland series that's located near the central part of the old railroad bed. So that area is remaining pretty much intact and no hydraulic impact is being performed in that area.
How close are you to the old railroad bed?
At its closest, the fence line, I believe, is about 10 feet off of it.
10 feet?
Don't hold me to it, but I believe that
They're
is.
planning on expanding that, you know.
And that's, Chairman,
There
that's my
are
concern.
plans to expand that,
To expand what?
Bike path,
the bike path.
To the property line.
which is going to incorporate children, which is now a safety concern, having something like that in the woods. with
I'm just
children on it.
letting you know that
This is new information.
Okay,
to
so-
us.
it's been talked about for quite a few years, and
Okay,
I
what we
believe
have-
there's been money allocated to do it.
What we have to concentrate on is how this is gonna affect the wetlands. So this has to be run by the fire department, I would imagine, and the planning board and the zoning and all that. So it looks like it's a minimal effect on the wetlands, in my opinion. I could understand the dangers that people have, or I mean, the fears they have of danger, but as far as it affecting the wetlands is what we have to concentrate on. And it looks like a minimal amount of impervious surface. And it looks like the stormwater drainage plan has been well-designed. So we have to go from there. Go ahead, Lionel.
I have to disagree, because from where I see this plan coming and the water coming down, going under Pearl Street, if that increases any more, we have flooding every year there. If you increase more water coming down, if that drainage ditch can't handle, where do you think it's going? Across the roads, Grove Street and the rest of them.
Okay, sir? Sir? Use that mic right there.
Microphone right there you can use.
I'll sign the thing after I get out.
Just move this out of your way.
All right. Steve Laflamme, School Street. My first question is, what type of sound comes out of this unit? I doubt it's totally silent, and I know it's industrial. It's just a question.
Sure. So if you want to attend the next planning meeting, I will go 100% into that subject, but the sound to abutters is negligent.
Okay. My next question is about the transformers. Do they have oil in them?
It's a, what do you want to call it, environmentally safe, just like any kind of transformer that National Grid typically uses, yes.
It's an environmentally safe chemical that's inside the transformers? Because for a lot of them have some real nasty oil in them.
These do not.
But these do not. Okay, fair enough. Next question is, what is the battery technology?
Sure. The battery technology that we're dealing with here, it's a lithium iron phosphate chemistry. So lithium ion has, I believe, 7 different types of chemistry involved. As far as there's NMC for nickel, manganese, cobalt. These are lithium iron phosphate. There's no heavy metals in there. There are really no environmental hazards to be involved with these lithium iron phosphate batteries. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay,
100%.
that's good enough for that part. The main thing I'm driving at is these lithium-ion batteries. We've seen them in the cars, the new electric cars. These cars are burning to the ground with 2 fire hoses on them, burning to the ground, because it's a chemical reaction. Once one cell goes, it ignites, it affects the cells aside of it. There's no way to turn it off until all the cells have burnt. I believe there's a foam that'll contain it, but I believe that's been proven to be a cancer-causing foam. I'm not an expert, and I don't know a lot about fire suppression. That's a little bit what I could research. I'm sorry I'm late to the dance, but I just got notified. So now you can't put out that fire. It has to burn itself down. If the wind's blowing in the right direction, it's going to get the next one and the next one. In the meantime, you're spraying them down with water, splashing all them chemicals out into our wetlands. Now, if I'm wrong about this stuff, say so.
There are aspects that you're right, there's aspects that you're
Okay.
wrong. It has to do with certain chemistries, it has to do with response for certain chemistries. So this particular system here that we're looking at, this lithium iron phosphate, these systems go through what is called a UL certification, Underwriters Laboratory certification. Every component of the system has to comply with UL, has to be listed with UL. The whole system has to be certified at the end to comply with the UL certifications. It's 9540 is the standard that it has to meet. So with that, there's a large-scale fire propagation testing that goes along with this UL 9540, and that's called a UL 9540A testing. It's a large-scale fire testing requirement by law for all these systems. That testing determines how the system needs to provide fire suppression as well as guides the response on our end. So we work with a company out of Ohio called Energy Safety Resource Group, and what they do is, on a day-to-day basis anyway, aside from consulting for people like us, they set fires to these batteries they do UL testing, essentially, is what they do. They test on the cellular level, they test on the module level, as well as the system, and what that tells them is how fast that heat propagates from cell to cell. Now, this particular system is much different than the next system. So we're not looking at across the board, this is how you would respond to a fire, right? So this particular system, UL 9540, has given the manufacturer, SunGrow Manufacturing, specifications on how this system can be built, how close power can be to each other. So SunGrow has taken this 30-foot container and divided it into 4 different compartments. The first compartment has a liquid-cooled system, then it has a fire-rated wall. Then you go to 3 different racks, and if you attend the planning board, I can get a little bit more into detail about all this stuff. But the racks have 8 modules in each of them. So you have liquid-cooled, 3 racks of batteries, fire-rated wall on either side of the batteries. Then you have your DC to DC converters, which just equalize the power to get it back to the grid. Another fire-rated wall, and then 3 more racks of batteries. So each container here, we have a 5 megawatt system. Each container holds about 0.6, we'll just call it half a megawatt, right? So for purpose of conversation, so each side of the container is then further separated into a 1/4 megawatt each. So the separation of power comes in from the UL testing as well as the NFPA codes. NFPA 855 is the national fire code that we have to abide by for energy storage, specifically made for energy storage, most recently revised in 2022. NFPA calls for dry pipes to be installed, dry pipes, and I'm meaning a dry sprinkler system, to be installed within these containers. Each container has a single dry pipe that is plumbed to it that goes outside of the fence, and you can kind of see there's a hard black line that runs along the west side of the batteries there. That goes outside the fence, so the fire department has the ability. That's part of NFPA 855. That is a requirement by law, we have to have it. Our guidance from Energy Safety Resource Group is to not put water on this system. And like you said, right, you said it, you have to let the energy burn out. You do. What you see on TV with these cars and all this stuff on the side of the highway, you see 10,000 gallons worth of water being put on these batteries and they catch fire again an hour later. That's the reason for the response, is you utilize your resources in the best way that you can, and you allow the energy to burn out of that one cell, because again, now we're going back to the UL 9540, that heat propagation doesn't reach the next module, doesn't reach the next rack. That's determined through testing on the UL. So these systems are very vastly regulated as far as how they can be set up, how much power can be in one container, what that separation needs to be. So there's many aspects that play into this, but our guidance, if we get approval on this whole project and upon mechanical completion, we put a ERP, an emergency response plan together, and the fire department is involved with that with ESRG, and their guidance is to never put water on the system. You surround your surrounding exposures, you protect your surrounding exposures, so essentially now you have rainwater on all the containers and other surrounding exposures. It's never to be putting water directly onto a battery, so you will never see a contaminant enter that water.
So what did you say the fire department had access to in those black lines? Was it just switches to shut stuff off, or was it the ability to put water in there?
It's the ability to put water. It's a requirement under NFPA. It has to be there.
So it has to have the ability, but you recommend not to do it?
Our guidance to the fire department is to never hook up to those pipes,
But you have to have it.
but we have to
Bottom
have
line
them.
is, though, they can still take off, right? If a cell takes off, it's gonna take that whole group. How many cells is in that little compartment?
Are these compartments heated?
They're cooled, so the batteries produce heat 24/7, right? So these are liquid cooled. They use a closed loop coolant system, just like your automobile. They have individual solenoids on each battery module that calls or rejects for fluid to maintain optimal.
And I got one other
Yeah.
question. Are there any of these in other places in Massachusetts?
Sure, so
Like around,
Templeton has one with their light department.
oh, they do?
They have a single battery container with their light department over there, right on Bridge Street. Is that Bridge Street? I think. Right,
behind
directly,
Cumberland's?
right on the main road.
Yeah, that's Bridge Street.
I didn't know. This is the first I've ever really heard.
There, through the SMART portfolio with solar, there are 500 megawatts worth of energy storage in this state. In 2014, the ACES grant with municipalities such as Templeton, such as the town I'm from, Sterling, they have battery storage that was used as a pilot program to implement this long-term,
Okay,
right?
because I've never really heard much about it. That's I don't,
Okay, bottom line is, I think still those batteries can go off, and we wouldn't want them to go off near our wetlands, but we've already beat that horse. I think we'll probably do more in the planning board, you said?
Be glad to talk more about it in the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more the purview.
Okay, I think the thing belongs in a sand pit on a slab, so if it burns, it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, it could go to the trees, burn the trees in the wetland. It's close to, and those fires are bad. I've seen a 2-cell fire burn down a garage. It's lithium, laptops, scooters, but, and I hope all those safety procedures are in place, and I hope the government's regulating it, because that stuff is dangerous. It's not to be, if you use it properly, it's fine. But every once in a while, a cell goes off, it's gonna take off everything near it, and it's gonna go till it stops. There's no shutting it off. So I got one other comment about this. We all know that technology is almost obsolete when it gets put into place. And also, what I've seen is over-exaggerated returns on investments in the solar world.
That's not a wetlands issue. That's a planning board issue.
Yeah, let's not,
See, I don't mean to interrupt, it's just, we seem to be discussing a lot of issues that are planning board related and not wetland related, while there have been some issues that have been made.
Well, I can try to tie this in with the environmental.
Yeah, you've done that pretty thoroughly, sir. I think we've exhausted that.
No, I'm not talking about that anymore. I'm
Okay.
talking about a different issue with
Okay.
this.
Okay, go ahead.
It's just one more thing, that, like I said, the technology goes out, the return on investment is in there, suddenly the site's abandoned, and we, the taxpayers in the town, end up doing the cleanup. And I know you can't leverage something like this, I know it's the plan board, but there should be some kind of an escrow account in place, so if they book town and leave all these harmful batteries and everything in place, that there's money for the town to clean it up.
And again, a planning board issue. And
Okay.
just keep in mind, you drive next to Teslas every single day, and Teslas have these same batteries. So if you want to say these batteries are dangerous, you drive next to them every single day, many times. It's battery technology. We're not getting away from it.
Oh, no. we
That's
have
where-
to
that's where we're going.
You have to stay with it. That's why see, the plan was very vague about any batteries. They said storage, and they said the fire department would have to be trained.
Well, batteries are pretty much the only things that store, besides capacitors, batteries are pretty much the only things that store power. So,
We don't even have the,
No. Okay, I'm done. Thank you for your time. I'm glad,
thank you.
I appreciate you giving me a chance to say my piece.
You probably want to talk to the planning board about a decommissioning bond. A decommissioning bond in case this place is ever, in case the batteries are taken out of service and they're removed.
And that is part of the solar bylaw, so that
So
will
you
be
might want to
abided
talk to
by.
this gentleman about that at the planning board meeting.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can understand his concern.
Because once it's in there, we can't get it out.
what's the time frame you're looking to do this?
So right now, this project is in with National Grid, being studied. This particular area in general has a high influx of applications over the past couple of years, so they have this in what they're calling a CIP area. So I'm thinking it's probably about a year out from build.
So let's continue this to our next meeting, and we've raised some good questions, and people can kick it around in their heads and come up with any questions they have.
I think I agree, because I think there's a lot of things that need to be looked at more before.
And if
The
there's any,
wetlands.
and if there's any public
On a
watching,
planning
they might
board.
show up at the next meeting.
Aspect.
So,
Yeah, I probably would, the same thing with the other one, I'd recommend a continuance, because I did take a look at what is required on the review, and, you know, for the stormwater, and you still got, it looks like it's nothing that's a project killer, but let's get Ty and Bond to sign off on the stormwater, and then I can send that off to DEP so that they know that it's been examined.
That sounds good.
so I'll entertain a motion to continue this to our next meeting.
I make a motion to continue to the next meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Votes aye.
So can we also continue 256 Murdoch?
I'll entertain a motion to continue that
Same
one as
thing.
well.
Just
Other side of the building.
the other side of the building, they want to put others?
Yep, same issue.
Towards the school streets.
Yep,
Same issues are gonna come up, same
Yeah,
questions
so
need to
the
be
one we
answered.
were talking about is the one
that one, and this one, this is right next
Do
to.
we have a motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue the other one.
256 Murdoch?
A second.
All in favor?
Okay.
If the commission allows, I would like to just introduce the next project, but just so you're familiar with the setting, you know that stormwater related, you know that's a separate thing, but
This is the 256 Murdoch, it's just on the other side of the building.
Okay,
That's up on the screen right now.
I think the main issue is people's unfamiliarity with the chemicals and the processes and the explosion capabilities and all that. A lot of questions need to be asked and answered by themselves. Research needs to be done. So I think we should probably just talk about that at the next meeting. It's gonna be the same issues. It's gonna be the same questions that just came up.
Okay.
For
No,
that hearing.
I understand, in case people wanted to further understand where this is in relation to the wetlands.
Well, we can talk about that at the next meeting. It's gonna be the same thing, but the same questions with chemicals and that are gonna come up, chemical reactions and things like that. Because this is the first time we've ever had a hearing like this in front of us. We don't have a battery, farm in town, so I don't think anybody knows much about batteries, well, except this gentleman. But, I mean, but yeah, I think we could continue it. I think we could spend some time at the next meeting where it's at, because the questions could be, people would be much more informed. We can do our research as a board. The public can do their research if they have any questions, so that we're not answering the same questions over and over and over and then continuing it again. So if you wouldn't mind, I think,
I'll defer to the applicant.
That's okay with me. Yeah, I agree with you. We can continue.
so a motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
By the way, the answer is 0.3%. The gentleman asked how often do battery-operated cars burn up? It's 0.3%.
Oh, cars?
Yeah, battery-operated ones,
Yeah.
whereas combustion engines are 1.5%.
Yep.
Pretty small amount.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So basically, all we have are the certificates of compliance. We have two other certificates of compliance for approval. One would be 204 to 206 Glen Allen. That is an old order that dates back from 1993 for the construction of the house. And
I apologize. Last hearing, the commission approved the project on Baldwin Still Bay Road.
they've got it here for signature.
Okay, great. Nope, just wanted to get my client an update. Thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to say, we're going to sign certificates of compliance right now, but if anyone in the public has comments or questions, we'll allow that time after we sign these certificates of compliance. Okay.
So the first one is for 204 to 206 Glen Allen. And the other one is for 185 Russell Farm Road. That was for,
Septic system.
no, it wasn't a septic system, actually, it was for the house itself.
Oh,
The septic system was after the house.
okay.
So, can I have a motion to approve 204 to 206 Glen Allen's certificate of compliance?
I make a motion to approve the certificate of compliance on 204 and 206 Glen
Seconded.
Allen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Okay.
I also have the three orders we approved from the last meeting for signature that I'm gonna pass around.
Okay, next we have 185 Russell Farm Road for approval of certificate of compliance. Motion?
I make a motion to approve 185 Russell Farm Road.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Lastly, we have 376 Beachview Drive.
I make a motion for 376 Beachview Drive.
Did Beachview?
Yeah, when
Yes.
Amanda Mills was here,
Okay, yep,
because that was on the same
Yeah, yeah.
property, so I figured we'd do it at the same time.
yep, sorry.
It's all right.
Motion's withdrawn. Discussion of 407 Maple Street.
That was the one that we have the enforcement order on. The gentleman was cutting the stream going into the road.
Yep.
I had to have the police have that served. I don't know if he's here this evening.
Is anyone here from Maple Street?
Okay, so he's not here, so I'm gonna elevate that up to the DEP action, to do the DEP level now.
Okay.
Just like we did with the last one over on Menominee East.
Okay, that's all the items we have on the agenda. Would anybody like to come forward and ask any questions or express any concerns?
Are these the two orders that I just signed?
There are three of them, yeah.
Oh, three.
Actually, Matt, we can no longer do that, correct? If it's not on the agenda, we can't discuss it? I believe that was changed.
Not, what were you here for?
That's fine. I'm Jennifer Allen. I think we have a little confusion. I'd received an email, and Leona had actually gone to the town hall.
These are the people for
and 580
Maybar.
River Street, a continuation of that NOI was supposed to be discussed, and it never did, so.
Maybar's? Right?
I thought we approved that at the last meeting.
Yeah,
with the condition that we would have a site walk with the abutters.
Right.
So I haven't even written up the permit on that one. So we can raise it at the next meeting. I haven't even written the permit, so.
And that's fine, I just don't understand why it was, like, I got an email for it, I can actually see it, that it shows it, but I know on the website, it doesn't have it listed, so I don't know why, like, we wouldn't all have
It
come
was
there.
actually approved at the last meeting with the condition that we do the site inspection with the neighbors, which we did,
Right,
okay? So now the commission is gonna have to come back and discuss what we're gonna issue for a permit, so we'll do that at the next meeting.
and that's great, and I totally, that's fine, I guess my question is, why was it on the agenda that originally?
It was a mix, it was a mistake.
Oh, okay, because we're all here for that, and we've just spent an hour here for that.
Yeah, it was a mistake.
All right,
I kind of wondered when they all walked in.
Okay, that's everything on the agenda.
We don't sign these, right?
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Show
That
me.
one.
Teach me.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Glenn?
What?
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, aye.
Chair votes aye.